The only item on the order paper is questions addressed to ministers in the economics cluster, cluster 5. The first question has been asked by the Honorable X Mabasa to the Minister of Small Business Development. The Honorable, the Minister.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, I repeat again, when there's a question of who's that, it is me, Lindiwe Zulu, and I am the Minister of Small Business Development. Honorable Speaker, I thank the Honorable Member for the question and would like to upfront, because the question relates to how celebrating Oliver Tambo, what steps does the department intend to take in practice to provide the majority of black persons? Chairperson, Speaker, I would like to say that my experience in the 3 years in the department has clearly indicated to me, and I think it is very clear to everybody else, that black people would like to work and would like to create wealth for themselves as much as everyone else as citizens of the country. I would also like to say, Honorable Speaker, that O.R. Tambo worked very hard for us to get South Africa to where it is today. And therefore, what the African National Congress stands for right now is to make sure that that struggle, that life which was spent by O.R. Tambo, ensuring that we have the South Africa we have today, will be continued by the government of today, and that includes myself as a Minister of Small Medium Enterprises as well as cooperatives. I would also want to say upfront, Honorable Speaker, that it is very difficult, in particular, for the majority of our small and medium enterprises and cooperatives, particularly those that are black, that are women-owned, that are youth-owned. It is very difficult for them to enter into the space because the economy of South Africa, whether we like it or not, was locked a long time ago, allowing only a few to flourish. And therefore, this Department of Small Business Development, especially in the current year, is targeting 641 beneficiaries to the value of 256 million for Black Business Supplier Development Program, and for the Cooperatives Incentive Scheme has targeted 302 beneficiaries whose projects are valued at 78 million. The Enterprise Incubation Program is allocated 49.7 million. The National Informal Business Upliftment Scheme is allocated 99.4 million for the current financial year. The Small Enterprise Development Agency, SEDA, is allocated 743.1 million in this financial year. I would like to say, Honorable Speaker, upfront, that this is a far cry if you consider the kind of demand and the kind of assistance that our people need overall to make sure that they earn their living through growing their businesses, but also ensuring that their businesses are successful. As part of our ambitions to bring the majority of black persons who have been excluded from the economic activities during the apartheid years, the 2019 aspirations that we set ourselves to realize are to ensure growth in the contribution of SMMEs to GDP from 42% to 45%, because this is what we see globally. The contribution of small and medium enterprises to the GDP in developed countries is quite high, including in the African continent. Increase the number of SMMEs and startups from 2.5 to 2.56 million. And I must say, Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, that startups in South Africa are the ones who suffer most, and in particular, those that I indicated, the previously disadvantaged. They do not have the money, they do not have access to the finance, and therefore many of them end up depending on access to finance and non-finance only through government programs. We will coordinate the 15 billion in small business support in various pockets of government to ensure a greater return on investments. Chairperson, this is very important for us as a department because we are aware of the fact that in almost all the departments, some budget sits there that is targeted at supporting small and medium enterprises. And so when we see 15 billion expenditure by government, we see this as an opportunity.
Minister, your time has expired.
And then we will coordinate and make sure that other departments give small and medium enterprises an opportunity. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mabasa.
Shipikara na msheweta. Na wena holobye Zulu na kusheweta. Hikari tekela enhlokweni leswaku leyi I n'hweti ya vantshwa ya Khotavuxika no tsundzuka leswaku vantshwa hi vona va khumbekaka swinene hi ku kayivela ka mitirho. Xana mi ta tiyisisa njhani leswaku vantshwa va pfuneka ku fikelela ntshunxeko eka swa ikonomi?
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The month of June is very important, not only to us as a Department of Small Business Development, but it is an important month for all South Africans. I have been speaking to young people as far as I possibly can, and this is what I've had to say to them, that the generation of June 16 did what they were supposed to do, and that is liberate South Africa politically. And I've said to young people, nobody can take that away from the June 16 generation, many of whom sit in this house, and in particular in this side of the house. Then I say to the young people of today, we have delivered in ensuring that South Africa is free, South Africa is democratic, South Africa has got the relevant institutions to defend that democracy. What the young people of today have to do is to do what the June 16 generation did, but focus on economic transformation, focus on ensuring that they take advantage of all opportunities that are presented by this government. It is for this reason, Honorable Speaker, that we boldly introduced a system of mainstreaming of programs to ensure that 50% of our products support enterprise in township areas, 50% to women-owned enterprises, 30% to youth-owned enterprises, 30% to enterprise operating in rural areas. And in this financial year, we are planning greater emphasis for youth-owned enterprises. What we would like to say, Honorable Speaker, is to call on all departments, not only to be just celebrating young people today, but open up in the value chain of the opportunities so that youth-owned enterprises begin to feel that they are becoming part and parcel of the mainstream economy of South Africa. I thank you.
The Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, through you, Minister. Junk status and an economy in recession are conditions that are not conducive to small business development. But what I would like to do is I actually want to take you to the travel agency industry this afternoon. The travel agency industry is a multi-million, we can even call it multi-billion rand industry that gets business and government tenders. But travel consultants that ticket 1.5 million rand a month is more than capable of actually going on their own. The industry and those capable include youth, women, and including black women that really does have the capabilities to go on their own. But the requirement set is so high. For example, and those requirements can only be achieved by multi-billion rand companies. To get license, number one, they need an IATA license or deposit that needs to be paid with a minimum of 250,000 rand. And if they do 1.5 million rand turnover a month, they need a credit card with that 1.5 million rand credit available. That is almost impossible for previously disadvantaged people ever to get to that level. What can we as government do to assist our capable agents to enter the space that is run by multi-billion rand companies and even getting government tenders? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Honorable Speaker, one of the reasons why, as government in general, we are looking into the structure of the economy of South Africa and why we are looking at decentralization of the economy of South Africa. It's basically to make sure that we create the conducive environment for the travel agencies that we are talking about. And I am aware, Honorable Speaker, that the department, not only our department, one of the things that I'm very much aware of is what the Department of Tourism in particular. We just came back from the tourism Indaba, which took place in Durban. And it became very clear, Honorable Speaker, the travel agencies that were exhibiting at that Indaba clearly indicated to us that government needs to do more, but it cannot just be government alone that does more to open up that space. We cannot also run away from the fact that travel agencies in the main, they deal with tourists that are coming from all over the world. My experience in the department is that most of the travel agencies, and particularly the white-owned travel agencies who have always been there, they have a very strong network, which is very difficult to penetrate by black-owned travel agencies. And therefore, we believe that first and foremost, working together with other departments, we need to make sure that both legislation, both regulatory environment becomes conducive for them. But also it's about using the current agencies who are actually making it, because the number of tourists in South Africa is growing, so the number grows, which means that opportunities for those travel agencies would also probably grow. So we need to break this monopolization of that sector. I am also aware, Honorable Member, and thank you for your question that much, that part of the European visitors who come to South Africa, they also demand so much from the travel agents, and rightfully they would demand, because if they come to South Africa, they want to make sure that everything that they come here, everything is done in order. But as a department, we believe this is not an area where we must work alone. It's an area where we have to work with all the other relevant departments to make sure that, simple, create a conducive environment for travel agents across the board in order for them to be able to take advantage, especially of the, if I can call it bumper crop, of the number of people that are coming to South Africa. One of the weaknesses also in the system, I've realized that many travel agencies, especially our own, do not have, the language is a problem for them. Many of the people who are coming from the African continent, some of them are French speaking, some of them are something else speaking, and the Chinese, I can see, are coming into South Africa a lot. When I was in Mpumalanga, addressing some of those travel agents, I said to them, you must not behave like as if life begins and ends here. You need to look for all other opportunities so that when visitors come or tourists want to come to South Africa, they can feel the comfort that they can communicate with you also better. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mente.
Enkosi Speaker. Minister, kukho into ezimbini ezibulala ushishino lwabantu eMzantsi Afrika, ingakumbi abantu abamnyama. One, yi-trade, i-imports, ingakumbi ezivela eChina. Two, zi-malls ne-shopping centers. Umbuzo wami ke ngoku apho ube ngoba wena no Minister of Trade and Industry ninayo na ipolicy eqinisekisayo ukuba osomashishini abancinci abalapha eMzantsi Afrika aba badevelop into ezifana nee-toothpicks, i-teeth brush, zonke izinto ezincinci bakwaziyo ufikelela kuzo, banamandla uba bafikelele kuzo ngamandla wabo bengacelanga mbuyekezo kurhulumente. Ninayona ipolicy ebakhuselayo kwii-imports ezi-cheaper than izinto zabo abazithengisayo eSouth Africa. And okwesibini, ezi malls ne-shopping centers zifikayo zibulale abasomashishini bancinci basemakhaya ezilalini naselokishini. Ithini into yabo, ithini ipolisi ekhusela aba bantu sebeneziphaza, sebenethaveni, kunye naba bantu bazi-general dealers ezilokishini. Okokugqibela ke Minister is that, kuzo zonke izinto uzibalayo noba uneminyaka emithathu lapha, unaso ni-statistics esisibonisayo uba ngobani osowubancedile, ungasikhombisa ukuthi la general dealer ndayiseyiva imile ngoku ngoncedo lwami, enkosi.
Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much, Member, for your question. I will start by saying that it is very important for us to have the common understanding when it comes to the issues of the malls. As a department, we have identified this as a very serious problem, particularly because malls are replacing your old general dealers. To that effect, we are having discussions with departments relevant, but we are thinking our focus must not only just be at department level, our focus must also be at a local and provincial level. Because most of these licenses for the building of the malls are being given at that level. I can just make one practical example. In Velcom, for instance, we have had a discussion with an upcoming mall that is coming up there, and we said, look, we are here as a Department of Small Business Development, supporting small and medium enterprises and informal sector, some of whom are selling something like this. And we said the problem is, if you go to the mall currently, you will not find this. If you find it, it's at a price that is unbelievable, because the women who are producing this, they do not have the opportunity of direct supply. Somebody is in between who has to do that. So firstly, as a matter of principle, we believe as a department, the whole issue of the malls that are cropping up everywhere, including cropping up even in the ruralist areas, it has to come to a stop. And the only way that it can stop will not be stopped by us as a department alone. There has to be an understanding on the side of government, in all the three spheres of government, that if you don't stop this, jobs are being taken away from our own, opportunities of our own actually building their own businesses is not going to happen. Lastly, we are also thinking that we must engage already those that are existing, because what is happening is people are unable to pay the rent at the malls. And so we believe that it's got to be our responsibility to engage. And again, I'll go to Velcom, because it is at Velcom that we engage. Some of the producers of this, now you will find them in certain areas of the mall, but unfortunately, the rent that they still have to pay is still very high. And therefore, we believe that the engagement in turning that whole thing around needs government overall. The statistics as to who have we helped, gladly we can submit to you almost each and everyone who we have supported, because remember when I was answering Honorable Mabaso, I spoke to the National Informal Upliftment Strategy which we have, and how much money we are giving. This is one of the most critical areas for us, because the majority of our people who are selling out in the streets, first the important thing is that we must stop this thing of them being pushed around and not being given a space to work. We are then saying at provincial and local level, let us engage to make sure that that space is created for them. But it's not about creating just empty space. It's about ensuring that they have all the necessary facilities, just like you would find when you go to other places. So we will submit to yourself the statistics of who have we helped so far. And I must say upfront to you, as I said earlier, it's still a far cry when you think of what how much people need to be assisted. It's the local economic development structures, as well as the provinces, who we must engage with to make sure that our plans are implemented, because we are at head office. We are not like other departments who would have provincial connection. We are just one department. So we are linking very much to the MECs for economic development and the local economic development offices to make sure that this that we are raising here, we also believe that's the way we need to go if we are to support small and medium enterprises. I thank you.
The Honorable Nkomo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You can see the Budbom Mavas for such a highly informative and highly charged question. It could only come from one of my own. You can see the Minister. Honorable Minister, how will your department be especially targeting the specific industries that are the causal to the recession the country now finds itself in respect of the promotion of entrepreneurs in these industries, specifically the trade and manufacturing sector? Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Honorable Speaker, we are very conscious of the effects and impact of our current economic challenges. And the first thing that we did immediately when we realized that, we decided as a department to form a team that was going to look at the impact on small and medium enterprises. We are hoping that, because we believe we must do a research, short, but something that will give us the facts and the figures as to how exactly are they going to, how that is going to have an impact. But we also believe that collectively as a government, we really have to do everything we can to make sure that we turn around the misfortunes of our economy right now. Because if we don't do that, ultimately the people that will suffer most are the small and medium enterprises that we are talking about, including the cooperatives. But also we do believe that having done that work, we must then be able to develop mechanism to cushion them from what is happening. And I think that once that report comes out, we can be able to come back and say, this is the plan that we have in place. But overall, what we think needs to happen is that the understanding of the importance of small and medium enterprises and cooperatives in general, not just by what we believe in as a department, but the general understanding of their importance, in fact, as far as addressing poverty, unemployment, and inequality. This is a task that needs to be carried by all departments. And by the way, this discussion that we are having around the impact, we have also included Treasury in it, so that there is an overall discussion that will help us to make sure that we develop systems and develop mechanisms to assist us. But we also would say, small and medium enterprises themselves, they're not just sitting back and saying, well, the economy is not looking very good. I know, as a matter of fact, that many of them, they're doing the best that they can to take advantage of all opportunities so that they can be able to grow. I thank you.
We now come to question number 89, asked by the Honorable Ngwenya Mabila to the Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The strengthening of relative rights of people working the land is currently implemented as a pilot program, and the target was to deliver 50 projects by 2019. To date, the department has received 91 applications from farmers in particular, that's commercial farmers, and 20 have so far been approved, and 11 of them are operational already. These projects have to date delivered 11,303 hectares, benefiting 606 farm workers who have become, like Mr. Nduli was saying, owners and managers of the farms. There are challenges, two main challenges. The first one is that capacity of farm workers is a key development challenge. We have engaged the National Empowerment Fund, and they're helping us in this regard. in deal making and training farm workers, particularly in business management, governance, marketing, balance sheet reading, trade and market analysis. The program will henceforth prioritize training of farm workers along these lines. Lastly, that's covered. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Ngwenya Mabila.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, viewing the challenges that you have been experienced with regards to the implementation of the SRR, what plans have been put in place to address those challenges? And also in this financial year, is the program going to be rolled out to other areas? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As I said earlier, the National Empowerment Fund is our partner. They are the ones who've been training, but because the volume of work is increasing, we have now we have entered into an agreement with IDC and Land Bank to join the training team. That's really the crux of the response, Chair. And I must say, Chair, that in some instances we're finding that part of the challenge is a cultural one, more than being the technical and managerial skills, etc. Because you have this old culture that the farm worker has just been a laborer on the farm. But now we have a company that's owned by farm workers and the former owner of the farm in some instances. And those now are the owners of the business on the land because the land belongs to the state. So those are some of it's a cultural thing that they're used to being bosses and others being just employees. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Robertson.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, the most pertinent question to land reform that's been asked by the nation today is, will beneficiaries of land reform ever get to own their own land? Minister, you're talking about these pilot projects. Do these pilot projects, as referred to, transfer ownership of land to beneficiaries? If not, when will the land ownership be transferred? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Honourable Speaker, I've addressed this question before in this House. I repeat, it is a matter which the opposition keeps coming to. The opposition thinks that the DA, I'm talking about the DA. The DA thinks that you can only do business if you own the land. We own the land as the state. The reason they want it, Speaker, I can tell you why. Because they know they own the banks. And when we can't pay, when our people are unable to service the loans, then the banks repossess the land. We're not going to allow that until our people are firmly on the ground. They can manage that. We will own the land. Thank you.
The Honourable Kulu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, what is your department doing in order to address the increasing consolidation of farms into larger units of ownership, as this is skewing the distribution on income amongst the few rather than the many in this sector?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. That's a big question, because with the regulation of land holdings bill, that's coming to this House soon, because we've now done the public comment stage. We have received 300 objections to that bill. It is actually addressing this question. That's the ceilings. People are objecting, and the owners of land in South Africa today are objecting to the ceilings. Our people are saying the large-scale viable commercial must not be more than 5,000 hectares. And we have people, individuals and businesses or institutions that own vast tracts of land. And that's where the challenge is now. That bill is coming to this House. We're hoping that it will be supported in this House so that our people can get the land, because the land above those ceilings will buy and distribute to our people. Thank you.
The Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Of the over 600 beneficiaries, Honorable Minister, how many have shown indications of a clear economic impact, which is on the positive, to show that they are really benefiting from the program? Also, would you kindly consider using that opportunity for placing the unemployed agricultural graduates as technical support to those farmers? Because we all know that in a number of cases, the farm owners or previous farm owners do not always prove to be honest partners. And we have got a large pool of graduates who need, employment and who can lend technical support to those farm dwellers. Thank you.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Filtani. That's what we're learning as well. It's true. We're going in that direction. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We now come to question number 95, asked by the Honorable McPherson to the Minister of Trade and Industry. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, on the process, in terms of the regulations of the Public Finance Management Act and Treasury regulations, the National Treasury in 2015 approved that the Department of Trade and Industry could create a transfer payment line for to support the activities of the Black Business Council. Over the last 3 financial years, an amount of 7 million was allocated under this line, as appropriated in the Adjusted Appropriation Act. 5 million of that was appropriated in the 2014-15 financial year, 1 million each in 15-16 and 16-17. These amounts have been reported in detail in the last 2 annual reports. The broader background is that in the recent past, organised business was fragmented in South Africa, and the Department of Trade and Industry played a facilitative role in the merger of business structures to form Business Unity South Africa. The formation of this was important to government because it created a platform for government to engage a more unified business community. As part of this, we committed to fund business organizations during the run-up to the establishment of BUSA, and in fact an amount larger than we had dispersed to BBC. In 2011, BUSA split, and the department deemed it necessary to continue to provide funding support to organized business, now in the Black Business Council, as a new formation that carried the interests of its membership and was directly linked to the economic transformation mandate of the Department of Trade and Industry. On the back of this, the BBC approached the department to present areas of collaboration and request funding for specific projects that relate to black economic empowerment and the then developing Black Industrialist Program. Before any consideration for funding were made, the department requested the BBC to present a business plan detailing projects and costing. Thank you very much.
The Honourable McPherson.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, after the explosive revelations contained in the Gupta leak emails, which detail the capture of the state by this dastardly family, do you not agree with me that it is highly unethical and morally wrong to fund an organisation like the BBC, which for all intensive purposes is a front for the Guptas to attack Treasury, which they have done, through puppets like Jimmy Money with public funds, considering they have no clear deliverables or requirements in return for the money and have no audit trail for that money? Minister, will you publicly apologise today for this transfer?
The Honourable the Minister.
No need to apologise, because I don't think there's anything to apologise about. That the BBC was required to provide reports on the funding which was being dispersed to them, and that also to provide audited financial statements. So I am satisfied that the money, which is in fact a very small amount of money, was used for purposes that also coincide with the mandate of the DTI, and that they're not being used for any unwarranted purposes. Thank you.
The Honourable Esther Raisen.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, in your own words, you said we want to make sure that we are targeting the right kind of people. A dedicated forum of officials will be created that would be responsible for funding or sponsoring decisions. We want to make very clear that this is not an opportunity for someone who's peripherally connected to manufacturing. Minister, on what substance basis then did the BBC qualify for the 7 million sponsorship? If the money was not yours or the DTI's, but the taxpayers to give. Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
No, well, first of all, I think that this was subject to approval from the National Treasury. It's not the first time, as I was pointing out, that the DTI has supported business organization in South Africa around specific projects. The quotation that you're referring to, I was speaking about the Black Industrialist Program. The BBC helped in the preparatory work for the Black Industrialist Program. But I'm very happy to be able to stand up and hold my head high and say that everybody who we have approved under the Black Industrialist Program are real industrialists contributing to the development of the real productive economy of this country. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Kubisa.
Speaker, on a point of order, our member Kachalia has pushed his button very early on and you're purposefully ignoring him. Why are you doing that?
Why I do that is that I don't take two people from the same party following each other. I move to the next party. And therefore, I call upon Honourable Kubisa from the NFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, I wanted to find out whether there are any other councils, provincially and locally, that you have funded as a department, and what are the specific areas that you focused on? And will they really be assisting the country? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I think as I pointed out in my main answer, that we had previously supported organizations that became part of Business Unity South Africa. That happened in the past, and that was, if you want, that was part of the process of supporting the unification of business in South Africa around defined projects that have been carefully thought through and which are subject to the normal Treasury rules and all the requirements of reporting. So you can see the further details in our annual reports. I already said this money's been there before, but it's not the first time we've supported business organization. Other business organizations have received money, and in fact more than the Poultry 7 million which we've provided in this case.
The Honourable Ntlangwini.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, we have written you a letter and asking you the beneficiaries of the Black Industrial Program. And since when is state money a secret? Why are you simply ignoring us? Why don't you want to answer and come back as to who is the beneficiaries of this industrial program? And as well, Minister, shouldn't this money rather been directed to families in Khayelitsha, and Langa and Tembaletu in George area rather than to give to this Black Business Council? I thank you, Speaker.
The Honourable the Minister.
Well, we recently did indicate how we will report on the recipients of the Black Industrialist Program. There is a process where we approve a grant and then there is a grant dispersed. And once that grant is dispersed, we will report in the annual report. We will provide a list of people that have received this money. That we are happy to do, and that will happen. That will happen on the Black Industrialist Program. So I think that there's nothing to hide. We're very happy to do so, and I'm sure that everything is perfectly above board. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 112.
Honourable Speaker, on a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
So the Minister agreed that within the next hour he will give us the list of the beneficiaries.
That's not
That is what
point
he said.
of order. That's not the point of order, Honourable Member. We come to question number 112, asked by the Honourable Paulson to the Minister of Science and Technology. The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Yes, the department does have research programs that seek to address the provision and delivery of water, sanitation, and electrification services. We don't carry out these programs directly as a department. We do so in partnership with various research institutions, including science councils and universities, and research councils of cognate departments, such as the Water Research Commission with respect to water. We demonstrate the technologies in partnership with the relevant line departments, such as the Department of Water and Sanitation in the context of water, and the Department of Energy on electrification. On successful demonstration, it's then the responsibility of the cognate departments to take up the technologies and ensure that they spread them and use them in a range of communities. We have a comprehensive water research development and innovation roadmap, which is a high-level framework on innovation in the water research, water innovation domain. Under the roadmap, we have a Water Technologies Demonstration Program, or WADA, which is a partnership between the DST and the Water Research Commission. We, through this, have begun to introduce the piloting of innovative technology solutions, particularly for clean water delivery systems in a range of communities. We've allocated funding of around 140 million rand toward other initiatives directed at improving service delivery within particularly rural communities through the Innovation for Rural Development Program, where 143 million rand has been made available to support the piloting of technologies in the 27 priority rural district municipalities. We also have introduced alternative energy resources through piloting these in schools using solar technology as well as hydrogen fuel cells. We will be installing further innovative technologies in schools in the Northwest Province in the coming months as a continuation of these innovative demonstration opportunities. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for the response. Minister, especially in informal settlements, the access to clean water and sanitation is a serious challenge. We have as many as 30 families using one tap, one toilet. So have we measured the impact of this research and compared to the amount of money we are putting into this research and how many people are benefiting from it? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Paulson, for the question. As you would be aware, we have been testing innovative sanitation technologies with the support of funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in the Eastern Cape district area of Tsofimbaba. And we have seen very positive take-up of the technology and support by communities. However, what would not be done by ourselves is to, what would happen would be that should the municipality or the province believe that the technology is of a successful nature, they would then be the ones who have a responsibility for introducing it to a broader range within the community. So ours would be to pilot, and then it would be taken up beyond that.
The Honorable King.
Okay, Honorable Minister, The Department of Science and Technology took the lead in an innovative partnership for rural development in the small-scale hydropower for rural electrification program. How many rural communities are currently benefiting from this program?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable King, for that question. As you're aware, the introductory pilot was in the Eastern Cape, in the area I have just made reference to, and we are expanding the program to an area in the northwest, to a number of schools. We've also begun with introduction to health clinics in the Gauteng province. So we will be looking at further expansion. But our first prize is once there's proof of concept, then it is the responsibility of the government spheres at local or provincial level to take up the technologies. We've begun to see some success with respect to the energy sector. For example, I've made reference to hydrogen fuel cells, but even with the photovoltaic solar technology, the Gauteng government is looking at it very positively with respect to their housing delivery program. So we are seeing now recognition of the need to pay attention to pilots that we support as part of a proof of concept research initiative, so that then the authority with the resources and responsibility would take on the obligation of wider introduction. But to more crisply answer, we're responding in the Gauteng province as well now as the Northwest province as from August this year. Thank you very much, Speaker.
The Honorable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, South Africa finds itself at an economic crossroads, particularly because we also have to mitigate against the looming nuclear deal, and which is a massive project of corruption which is about to befall the country if not stopped. Therefore, alternative methods of electrification are needed in the country, and given that there's an appetite to spend so much money on nuclear, what projects is the department embarking on to innovate newer electricity generation models to ensure that we do not find ourselves having to be the victims of nuclear? So specifically around electricity, what concepts are in the pipeline, and what is the vision of the department in finding those newer alternatives? Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, there are a range of technologies in the renewable sector that we are investing research time in. I've made reference to solar technologies because, as you know, while there is already some development in the solar sector, we haven't quite got to the edge of efficiency that we need in terms of storage, in terms of provision of energy resources for much longer duration than currently available. So there are opportunities for innovation in the solar space. With respect to the South African context, particularly that focus of wanting to look at how we can utilize value addition and beneficiation to respond to some development challenges, the hydrogen fuel sector with platinum as a catalyst in that energy solution is an area that we are devoting a great deal of resources to. I also think more interest is now beginning to be paid to hydropower and what we might do there. So what you really are looking at is developing a range of energy solutions and not limiting yourself to one. So nuclear is part of an energy mix. It's not a sole focus of the government. So I think we shouldn't make it more than it is. I'm not aware that there's a looming deal, as you would term it. I would think 2030 or so is not quite looming, but since you're very young, perhaps it seems to be. But from my perspective of the Department of Science and Technology, there are, I think, many exciting areas that we should look at in innovation in the energy space. I think biomass, for example, there's hardly a conversation about it, and its conversion to energy is an exciting opportunity, which also could have labor-intensive and skills development links to it. So I think we shouldn't neglect the range of opportunities available as we look at what form of energy mix we should have. And certainly in our research portfolio, we have stretched as wide as is possible. Thank you.
The Honorable Fabs.
Would have been related to the earlier one. Thank you.
Okay. The Honorable Korenhoff.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We can all agree that innovation is the key to development, Honourable Minister, and that the Water Research Commission is there to help municipalities. In the light of the severe drought in the Western Cape, and in particular Cape Town, has there been any request from the City of Cape Town to your department to assist with possible solutions to better the situation in the future? If not, Honourable Minister, will you intervene and make sure that they do get the assistance?
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Korenhoff. I'm afraid I would not have the detail as to the various municipalities that approach the Water Research Commission, but I am aware that the roadmap is providing assistance to a number of municipalities that are facing water challenges, including responding recently when some of our provinces confronted a very serious drought. The support that is being provided includes knowledge and technologies on the quality and quantity of available water resources. For example, the research has focused upon alternative sources of water, such as groundwater, what quality of water we may have in groundwater, what form of technology we might utilize to improve the quality of wastewater, because there's recovery mechanisms that might be useful. So many municipalities are looking at wastewater management and treatment, and there are technologies available that have already been tested by the CSIR, by the Water Research Commission. So the WADA unit at the Water Research Commission is looking at these different technologies and is working with municipalities to ensure that as we respond to challenges, we actually respond through evidence-based assessments to inform the decisions that municipalities make. We are particularly excited as the science and technology sector that increasingly municipalities are looking for evidence-based solutions and are looking to research institutions to support them in deriving that which will inform their policy decisions.
We now come to question number 88, asked by the Honourable Bengu to the Minister of Small Business Development. The Honourable the Minister.
Honourable Speaker, my apology, I didn't hear which question you were referring to.
It's the question number 88.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I need my spectacles. Honourable Speaker, the department is working closely with all spheres of government to ensure that an integrated approach is adopted in line with the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act. We are also engaging with municipalities to ensure that priority programs are integrated into the plans and budget of municipalities through the Integrated Development Plan of Municipalities. I would like to say, Honourable Speaker, that an integrated approach to supporting small and medium enterprises, as I referred to much earlier, is very important. I also would like, Honourable Speaker, to say that as a department which does not necessarily have, like other departments, a link directly at local level and provincial level, we have to work very closely with municipalities, we have to work very closely with MECs so that our strategy, our plans speak to each other. We have recently reviewed all of our programs in the department and its agencies to ensure that they speak to the felt needs of the public and respond to the challenges they face as we have enhanced our programs in this regard. The program were also reviewed to focus on the coordination role of the department in order to harness our collective efforts at local, provincial, and national level. I've already met with the MECs for economic development of Mpumalanga, Free State, Gauteng, Northwest provinces, and I will soon be meeting with other MECs of other provinces. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Bengu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Could the Honorable Minister for Small Business Development explain to this August House how does the Department of Small Business Development, in its coordinating role in championing the development of SMMEs and cooperatives, facilitate alignment of budgets and programs of various departments and spheres of government to ensure that there is an integrated development approach to achieve maximum results using limited resources, in view of the fact that we have to create 9.9 million new jobs by 2030. I thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I must upfront say that one of the biggest challenges of creating a properly coordinated approach is the fact that many a times government at all three spheres operates sometimes terribly in silos. And we are of the belief that if we can be able to get a buy-in from all the three spheres of government to appreciate and understand that working together, especially because there are systems in place that are supposed to help us, that we can be able to achieve this. The department has made contact with district municipalities to facilitate integration of SMMEs and cooperatives development through their planning processes. The expectation from this approach is that various government departments at all spheres will align their plans and budgets to achieve the desired results of creating 90% of the 11 million jobs by 2030 through small business development and cooperatives as articulated in the National Development Plan. Honorable Speaker, the issue here is there's got to be an understanding that the creation of these jobs that we are talking about is something that we need to coordinate as a department in as far as specifically supporting your small and medium enterprises, and therefore it should not be seen to be a responsibility of the National Department, but it's got to be something that's understood by all three spheres of government. It is for this reason, Honorable Chairperson, that we are saying strengthening the local economic development offices, giving them enough budget, and ensuring that the people who work in those offices are people that have a common understanding of what support needs to be given to small and medium enterprises. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Chance.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, it's clear from your appearance before the Portfolio Committee this morning that your department is on the defensive. And in fact, we know that your department is practically invisible to 97% of businesses in this country. Last year, your department only had contact with roughly 80,000 of the roughly 5 million businesses in this country. Its invisibility, and I might even say its irrelevance, is one reason, perhaps, why South Africa is now entering recession, with growth only at -0.7 in the last quarter. So when will you recognize, Minister, that your department has to step out of the narrow confines of the small-scale programs that you've been running for the last 3 years, and instead take a lead in calling for fundamental reforms in labour, tax policy, and other incentives necessary to raise the growth rate to levels where the economy can actually grow and small businesses can create jobs?
Honourable Minister.
Honourable Chair, I do appreciate and I do agree that we do need to step up in supporting small and medium enterprises. I do agree, and I did indicate in the very beginning when I was tabulating how much resources are in our kitty and how many of the small and medium enterprises and cooperatives we have supported, I did indicate in the very beginning that it is a far cry from what we are supposed to do in supporting your small and medium enterprises. Also, Chairperson, may I say that I can never be in defense of something that I think is not operating. I have, to the Portfolio Committee, as we were even today, indicated where we have been successful, also indicated where we are not successful. On top of that, Chairperson, we did also make an undertaking as a department and the ministry that where we feel that we are falling short, we need to step up. However, the 80,000 that Honourable Chance is talking about, there has to also be an understanding that it cannot just be the 80,000 that is referred to as supported only by our department. We should look overall in government support for all small and medium enterprises and cooperatives supported by all other departments. And we have requested that every time different departments are planning and they are looking at the budget that they have, we are asking the question, how much of that is going to go to supporting small and medium enterprises? How much of that, of the departments are going to open up opportunities for small and medium enterprises in the value chain? So I'd like to say to Honourable Chance, we hear you. We don't argue with you when we know that some of the things that you are talking about, we've got the responsibility to take, to make sure that it happens.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Mwabe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, to what extent does technology feature in the plans to develop small businesses? And what impact has SEDA technology program in particular had in furthering the aims of small businesses development, especially in rural areas? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mwabe, for that question. First and foremost, I would like to say that technology is the way to go, not only for those people who are in towns, but also in rural areas. So the first thing that I'd like to say is that the creation and access by your small and medium enterprises to current technology is very important for the department. It's not only just important for the department, but it is important for the small and medium enterprises themselves. Hence, when we talk about the SEDA technology program, remember that SEDA is the one that is responsible for non-financial support of our programs. And this program is spread throughout the country in order to first and foremost say to people, do not be afraid of technology. Make technology your friend, because technology will make it easy for you to do your businesses. We are also looking at the experience of other countries, and one of those countries that we see that technology is used very much by small and medium enterprises is Kenya. And we believe that that experience and what SEDA technology is currently rolling out or is rolled out into the country overall will assist in ensuring that small and medium enterprises grow. But at the end of it all, also, Chairperson, is that education should be at the center of supporting our small and medium enterprises. The future is going to be through technology. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Alberts.
Deputy Speaker.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, we move to the next question. Doesn't even seem to be here. The next question is to the Minister of Tourism by Honorable Kebekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On Zitabiseni Resort in Mpumalanga, the department has invested 30 million in upgrading Zitabiseni Resort. The renovations were completed in December 2013. During the construction phase, about 200 people were employed and received accredited and non-accredited training. The resort is currently operational and under the management of Mpumalanga Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism. Mangwazi Hattington Village Tourism Project in Mpumalanga, the department invested 10 million for the development of this accommodation facility. The facility was handed over to the Bushbuck Ridge local municipality in May 2016. In terms of the handing over agreement, the municipality as the owner of the project and is responsible for, amongst others, the management, maintenance, and operations of the facility. The department is aware that the facility is not operational and has raised concerns with the municipality. And our plans on Zitabiseni is, the plans afoot for Zitabiseni Resort is that the Mpumalanga Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism has plans to commercialize the resort, and about 2 months ago they issued an advert looking for private sector partners and investors. The provincial department can be contacted. I have details that I can forward, and as the National Department of Tourism, we do not run operations. And for Mangwazi, Huntington Village, in April 2017, the department submitted their concerns about the state of the facility to the Bushbuck Ridge municipality. The municipality has not really given us tangible responses, but we do have the contacts of the municipality. Thank you.
Honorable Kebekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Madam Minister, were the people identified as beneficiaries of these projects approached and these projects officially handed over to them, as we've just mentioned maybe, were the beneficiaries communities consulted on identification of these projects, or were the projects decided for them? Asking this question, Madam Minister, looking at the proximity of these projects, they are far away from the humans, from the settlements. And obviously, people find it very difficult for them just to walk that distance. And when we are out on oversight, not a single person of the locality who ever attended when we were there, just to be sure that these are the people who are beneficiaries. It's only for that the chalets where people were there. But even them, seemingly it appeared that they were not interested in running the chalet, but for them was just an opportunity employment. What is the department doing about maybe allowing the opportunity for the people to identify the projects that they want to serve on, or to serve them? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. There are several categories of applications that we've been receiving as a department. Some were from individuals, and as part of our application assessment, we'll check on the feasibility and all of that in terms of the project. And then when that has been identified, then we would fund the project. As you may also remember that some of these facilities are just indeed would be next to the sea, which is away from the actual communities. So we would not really find a situation where there would have been that direct contact or direct, kind of consultation with the communities. That is the historic thing. But in terms of our projects, as would have been financing as part of our expanded public works program, it has been now as part of our requirements that there would have been proper consultation with the communities and would understand the sustainability of such a project, and also the long-term kind of sustainability would form part of what constitute our funding formula. So some of what then happens is the fact that there needs to be awareness that gets created by a product or product owner within that community. So those depend on who owns the product, whether it is the municipality or it is us. We come in at a stage where we look and see if it meets such requirements. Because our people and awareness about tourism, especially in rural areas, has not been as much to our, kind of what we would have thought of, it is still part of what we are doing to create awareness much more.
Thank you. Honorable Masela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for the answers that we have just given. Given that the primary responsibility for maintenance and functioning of these lodges reside with the province, what are the multiple sources of financial and regulatory support that are available to provinces and municipalities to ensure the success of tourism ventures? I thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Learning over the years as we've been implementing the expanded public works program, which is now called Working for Tourism, we have now developed a support program where we support municipalities through provision of training and technical support for tourism development at local level. And other support mechanisms by the department include where we provide market access and also grading support through our tourism incentive program. We also expose staff to training programs that are facilitated by the department. And currently, with the newly created Tourism Transformation Fund, we will also be providing funding for operational and capital expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Force.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Minister, according to the latest report on the Social Responsibility Implementation Program, a substantial number of projects amounting to more than 50 million rand have been placed on hold as a result of poor management, and also that many of these municipalities do not have the capacity to fulfill their mandates to oversee the successful implementation of these projects. Such a pity, because these projects could have been wonderful in those rural areas to contribute to the tourism economy, and specifically listening to your response today, in those areas it is much needed. It is also very concerning that some of these projects and investigations date back to 2011, and to date the results of this audit has never been made public to Parliament or to our Portfolio Committee. Will the Minister confirm what is being done to get these issues resolved, and furthermore would the Minister agree to refer these cases to the Special Investigations Unit so that these monies can be recovered? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, Deputy Speaker. Indeed, it's also our concern because when applications get made, there is every indication that the project is in line with the requirements. And in terms of our report, some of those that we could pick elements of real fraud and corruption, we have referred such. But with those where we could see that's a matter of having to make a decision to continue or to discontinue because of the shift now in terms of whether it is still as viable or not. That's the decision that the department is still going to take. But we take the sentiment and we will fast track to make sure that we finalize the matters and we are able to revert back to the respective projects and also advise the committee. Thank you.
Honorable Khawla.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, this is not only the case in Mpumalanga province. Across all 9 provinces, many of these resorts were built with taxpayers' money, with budgets coming from the national and provincial government. And today, they are left to municipalities to operationalize and maintain without necessarily providing adequate resources. It is not only resorts, but also community halls and sport facilities. Now the question, given that local government is given only 9% of the nationally raised revenue, from the tourism perspective, what has your department done to ensure that municipalities have sufficient budget to operationalize and maintain tourism sector in the local government? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much once more. Indeed, as I was trying to respond to say, it's not only when it comes to Zitabiseni and the other project. It is cutting across, as Honorable Foss was indicating about the other facilities we're talking about. We are building more and more on our relationship with local government to ensure that local government prioritizes tourism, and they also understand and also give training support for them to be able to take up issues of tourism, because it can turn around their financial situation. The matter is not leaving it to municipalities, because we're not only talking those facilities whose assets are directly under municipalities. We are talking also those that are private facilities that are not sustainable or are not operational. We are in a process where we're working with municipalities to really look into how we can identify areas where we can work and develop nodes through which we can then look into a packaged kind of intervention that will look into training, will look into product development, look into market access, and all the features that are required so that we can see how it works, be it in townships, be it in rural areas and everywhere in the small municipalities. It is not in our, our reach to be able to fund municipalities. As you know, the budget that we have, it's not feasible to do that, but we can assist them. We can make sure municipalities prioritize, and with the work that we are doing, we think we can assist to move better.
We move to the next question asked by Honorable Kubiza to the Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The number of land claims settled is 804, according to the questionnaire 2016-17. It's 804 against a target of 615. And the number of land claims finalized, 672, against a target of 454. Number of phased projects approved, 75 against a target of 76. And the number of claims lodged by 1998 to be researched is 1,558 against the annual target of 1,530. As at 31st March 2017, the number of outstanding claims is 6,607. We have appointed the research unit at the University of Zululand to finalize the outstanding claims, Honorable Deputy Speaker, so that, and they've given us until the end of June this month to finalize that so that we could settle the rest of them. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy.
Honorable Kubiza.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, there is no doubt that the number of the outstanding claims is huge. But let's go beyond the claims that have been finalized. There is no doubt, Minister, that the department needs to continuously and radically change the patterns of land ownership, control, and management in order to make a meaningful contribution to economic growth and transformation. Now, the question is, Honorable Minister, does the department have other models of a community that is enterprising, or communities that are enterprising, like the Ravere community in Makado, in Limbombo, that is making profit and funds university students with bursaries and sponsorship, and also basic education, gives bursaries to learners who are in basic education, and also employs local people as a way of plowing back to the community? Do you have models of such enterprising communities? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. Ravele is actually presenting a unique situation. I was surprised as well when I went there, about 3 weeks or so ago. And I know that on the 12th, 13th, and 14th, there's an Eastern Cape delegation from Ngocha. They saw that on television. They're going there to see how they could also adapt, rather learn and adapt for their own circumstances. The uniqueness of that model is that the traditional leadership is actually chairing the CPA instead of having this duel between the traditional council and the CPA. So we hope that there will be more of such situations moving forward. But at the moment, it's actually an outstanding one. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Mbabama.
Ndiyabulela, Deputy Speaker. Minister Nkwinti, owami umbuzo ulula gqitha. Why does your department insist on patronizing rural people by denying them the responsibility of title to their own land?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Umhlonipheki beke wabuza ke lo mbuzo ngaphambili. Ndawuphendula. Mandiphinde ndiwuphendule. Siyaxoxa apha sivane nabantu. Sivana ngento yokuba masibe nayo indlela yokukhusela amalungelo abantu ngokubanika i-title deed. Sivene ngalonto. Ngakumbi apho bahlala khona abantu kuthiwa xa bathanda ukuthi xa bebiza u-13% batsho xa bebiza. Sivene ngalonto. Kodwa ingxaki ekhoyo yile. Khumbula kaloku ukuba sihamba loo ndlela funeka sicinge kakuhle kuba lo 13% wayezibantustani wayengamaphandle lawa. Abanye babantu already bane-title deed phaya. So ke ngoku indlela esifuna ukusebenza ngayo ukuthi bonke abantu abaphaya abanemihlaba bazifumane i-title deed. Kodwa funeka sizikhusele ukuze bangathi abantu xa beye ebhankeni bafumana imali, baboleka imali, bangakwazi ukuyihlawula ibhanka yothatha umhlaba. Sixakeke yiloo nto ke ngoku. Enkosi.
Honorable Kabekulu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, it's good that you've given the figures of the claims that have been settled and those that are still outstanding. If I may ask, Minister, does the number of claims settled include the number of partly settled claims? That is, farms that were split up and therefore only partly processed? umhlekazi uzasibeka phi kuleyo emhlabeni wawuklenywe umunye bese ubuyisa yena amaqanyana ahlukahlukene.
Minister.
Nkosi, thank you, Deputy Speaker. No, the challenge here is that ngamanye amaxesha into eyenzekayo le mhlonipheki omhle into yoba abantu bayabanga abanye baphinde babange phezu kwabanye. Ngoku into eyenzekayo xa ngoku nisombulula elba senithi niyagqiba kuvele ezi ke ngoku ezinye okanye imihlaba ngoba bayahlule mos abanini bathe bawuthatha umhlaba ngenye ixesha bamhlophe bawahlule kube ku-portion 1 portion 2 wale farming so kusetlishwe le portion kusale le portion kodwa nayo izawungenelela isetlishwe nayo inikwa abantu. Sinethemba loba xa sibuyisa ngakumbi ngoba yenzeke kakhulu lento kwela thuba lokuqala lobanga kukho abantu abasele ngaphandle abazama ungena ngoku xa besivula ngoku. Sinethemba loba sayisombulula yonke xa seyiphinde ivula ngoku mhlekazi. Enkosi. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Shelembe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Could the Minister please indicate what plans and programs are in place to ensure that productive land which is given back to the people as part of the land reform initiative will remain productive? Are the recipients of the land given guidelines on how to maintain and increase productivity? Are there any conditions set for recipients to ensure continued productivity of the land? And what follow-up measures are taken to assess whether the land productivity is maintained? I thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, there are a couple of things here. The Department of Rural Development and Land Reform does not have a mandate of developing land. Let's be clear on this. We have done that by simply taking 25% of the baseline budget to assist the farmers because we observed this problem, which the honorable member is articulating correctly here. And then we use that money to recapitalize and develop farms. And we had to start, by the way, from 1995. And I want to repeat this. We don't want to be seen to be shifting blame to agriculture, but that's exactly what agriculture should be doing. You know, over the last 18 months, to emphasize this point, every time we settle land, we send copies of the land to each premier across the country, all the premiers, to the Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation in the presidency, to the Minister of Women in the presidency. We send to all of the Minister of DAF to say, here are the farms which have been settled in your province, so that they should then follow up and develop the land and ensure that what the honorable member has articulated does not happen. We do help, but it's not our mandate. Thank you very much.
The next question is to the Minister of Trade and Industry from Honorable Fabs.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Let me just say that there's a rather longer answer which we can provide in writing to the Honourable Member. Let me try to summarize that since 2015 we've been facing a global glut of steel, which has led to dumping of steel across the world, leading to industry closures, in unemployment, job losses, and loss of capacity across the world. The short answer is the work of the departmental team our task team on steel is not yet complete. Up to now, outcomes that we're working on have included the following. an increase in the general rate of customs duty on primary steel products in return for reciprocal commitments on investment, job retention and pricing, a tariff review and implementation of a number of new tariffs on a range of downstream steel products, as well as the deployment of rebates, agreement on a set of principles for flat steel pricing in South Africa that is priced appropriately to ensure that steel-dependent industries are competitive, while at the same time ensuring that upstream steel mills remain sustainable, changes in local procurement by government, including amendments to regulations requiring the use of locally manufactured primary steel in infrastructure build, and designation of downstream steel-intensive construction steel products and components, the settlement of the Competition Commission issues with ArcelorMittal South Africa, the establishment of a 1.5 billion steel development fund to support downstream steel sectors, investment support through the 12I tax incentives, and incubation support for small and medium enterprises. Remaining work has been outlined in the Industrial Policy Action Plan for 2017-18 to 2019-20. It includes monitoring and evaluation of these interventions and the reciprocal commitments, engaging Eskom, Transnet, Proudly South Africa, strategic infrastructure projects on the demand for steel and steel products, working with the Economic Development Department, ITAC, and SARS on better policing and categorization of steel imports, finalizing a proposal to National Treasury for an export tax on scrap metal, engaging associations and industry to focus on upgrading innovation and high value-added steel products for export into regional construction and mining sectors, and finally, continued participation in the G20's Global Forum on Steel Excess Capacity. It's an ongoing challenge. Work's been done and work is continuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Fabs.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. And in fact, thank you very much, Minister, for that comprehensive response. I'm very pleased to hear, I think we all are, about the support you're giving to downstream the steel industry. But what would be, I think we would wish to learn is what support measures have you put in place to support the value-added steel products that are being exported regionally for construction and the mining sector towards a more sustainable path in the current situation? Secondly, if I may, we really welcome the 1.5 billion steel development fund that you have put together. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Fabs. Just to say that we do, of course, and have long seen that the jobs and the deeper manufacturing capacity does exist in the downstream industry, and that has always been a focus of our attention. As the Honourable Fabs has indicated, and as I said in my answer, we are engaging industry associations. We do see some real opportunities for the production of steel products for use in infrastructure and mining projects in the Southern Africa region. We are engaging with the industries on those. Just to say, this is not an easy exercise, because if we do not have primary steel manufacturing in South Africa, and we did at one stage, I think, risk the loss of that, not only would we have a situation in which we would regress to just the production of iron ore, which would be a disaster for our efforts to move up the value chain, but actually we don't even have the port capacity to import all the steel that would be needed for the downstream steel industries. So it's had to be a balancing act between sustaining primary steel manufacturing and at the same time ensuring that downstream steel manufacturers are not adversely affected by the measures we take to support primary steel making. Thank you.
Honourable Estherzen. Yes, IFP.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, from all the things that you've mentioned being implemented, China still sits with more than 200 million metric tons of overcapacity. The tariff protection of 10%, the maximum, if I'm not mistaken, allowed under WTO rules, is simply not enough. Won't the safeguard duty be more effective form of protection, as this has no upper limit? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, indeed, it is the case that the maximum bound rate for steel products is 10% under WTO rules, so we can't raise the general tariff above that. But in fact, there is a consideration that's been given. There's been work that's been done by ITAC. Consideration is being given to the deployment of some of the trade remedies because we do have an abnormal situation around the world. Indeed, I also mentioned that the work of the G20 steel group is important because I think we're trying to find a way in which we can deal with the source of the problem. The source of the problem, of course, is that there's just overcapacity of steel, and then low-price steel products have been dumped all over the world. Have created more havoc in other markets than they have in South Africa, I might add, where we've actually seen steel plants closed and thousands of jobs lost. Thanks.
Thank you. Honourable Kachalia.
Sorry, Speaker. The Honourable Kachalia pressed his button by mistake. I'm supposed to be taking the question.
And who are you?
Macpherson, Honourable Macpherson.
Okay.
Can I proceed?
Proceed.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, Minister, the fact of the matter is that you have treated ArcelorMittal with kid gloves, bending over backwards to protect a badly run, monopolistic business when they increase their prices to downstream manufacturers despite tariff protection being granted to them, seemingly in violation of agreements not to do so. And just last month, you would have read the opinion piece by downstream manufacturers criticizing your inaction and non-support towards them. We know that downstream manufacturers are bleeding jobs because of AMSA's pricing. Minister, why are you so determined to place AMSA's interests, one company, ahead of that of the downstream sector?
Minister.
Well, of course, the point that the honourable members make, it is nonsense. We're not trying to place the interests of one company above others. We've long seen more jobs and more capacity in downstream. But as I said earlier on, if we don't have primary steel making in South Africa, we don't have downstream steel industries either. And that's why we've had to seek a balance. The balance has required some tough choices to be made. We've made these choices, and there have been commitments that have been made on pricing policy, those have not been, as the honourable member tries to describe it, they have not been to say that there will be never an increase in the price of steel, but that there's a new pricing program in place. And indeed, I think that, as I already said, there's quite a number of measures in place to support downstream steel manufacturers. I think the issue for government, as opposed to the opposition that wants to pontificate, is to find a balance between the interests of the different parts of the value chain and not just to go with what happens to be the flow of some or other members of that value chain who have indeed been accommodated by the latest announcement of the 1.5 billion rand program to support downstream steelmaking. Thank you.
Honourable Mtlangwini.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As early as 2014, we have been saying as the EFF that instead of the knee-jerk reaction to protect the steel industry simply to protect jobs, something that is being done without considering the durability of the solutions. Don't you think, Minister, it is much more practical and sensible measure to re-nationalize ISCO, but for a much more broader purpose, which is industrialization? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, I think in the first instance, the durability of the solutions is that we have to ensure that there's primary steel making that carries on in South Africa. The questions about the long-term ownership of steel making and all of that, I think these are things we can debate in the fullness of time. But right now, we had to ensure that there was not a crash of the company that's making steel in South Africa. We had to ensure that that happens in the interest of saving jobs. And I think that that's what we've done. As I said earlier on, I don't think it's widely realized that if we allowed primary steel making to just disappear in South Africa, not only would we be regressing back down the value chain, but actually we do not have the port capacity to import all the steel that's needed. It would have a major contractionary effect on the downstream steel makers as well. Thank you.
The next question is asked to the Minister of Trade and Industry by Honorable Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Several sectors and/or products have to date been designated for procurement from locally manufactured sources under the triple PFA in order to leverage government spend to create a sustained and aggregate demand for locally produced products. The key sectors that have been designated include rail, rolling stock, power pylons and substation structures, structural steel, conveyance pipings, steel construction materials, valves, rail signaling, transformers, cables, furniture, and clothing and textiles. The main challenge in the implementation of localization programs across all of the designated sectors relate to non-compliance by some procuring entities, which in most instances are fueled by lack of knowledge and/or misinterpretation of the prevailing National Treasury instruction notes applicable in those cases. In some cases, there's also a level of misrepresentation by bidders in the declaration of local content. The department, in collaboration with industry, has been developing and implementing mechanisms with their own teething problems to detect non-compliance by procuring entities, and as such, the department has been able to intervene timeously in a number of cases to ensure that non-compliant tenders are withdrawn and/or reissued with localization requirements. The department is also offering training. The second part of the question is that in accordance with the guidelines, all incentives offered by the DTI requires compliance with applicable broad-based black economic empowerment prescripts, of which compliance with employment equity is an element. Thank you.
Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, is local procurement one of the conditions for receiving the incentive money? If so, to what extent? And if not, why not? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, I said that local procurement is, once it is translated into a practice note by Treasury, is no longer an option. All organs of state at all levels of government are required to procure from locally manufactured sources according to the prescripts of the instruction note. So it's a requirement that resides in legislation, and we are, as I said earlier on, seeking to ensure greater enforcement of this. As I just could give one example, sometimes tenders are given on the basis of percentages of localization, and sometimes if they're given to more than one entity, we find that the same products are not localized. People have the same percentage requirement, but they don't localize the same products. We're trying to deal with matters like that, as well as I said earlier, with willful non-compliance. And if honourable members know any instances where there's willful non-compliance, we'd be more than happy to hear, because we want to seek enforcement of the relevant legislation. Thank you very much.
Honourable Khawla.
Minister, we have said this before, and we'll say it again. And this is something that you do not know or has no knowledge. That is, the only way that South Africa can successfully localize any product is when those products that are currently in the market are not there anymore. Because if they continue to be available at the price at which they are, there is no way any industry can be built in such a competitive space when others have had more than 300 years to build industries. Everyone, including those that are well industrialized, are protecting their industry. Why are we not protecting our industry? America has just proven now it has taken a corner from globalization to localization. Why are we not localizing? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, I think the fact is that the answer to the question earlier indicates that we are localizing, and we are using policy tools to localize. Maybe not to the extent that you think we should, but we are. And we are trying to improve the enforcement of that. And then we are bound by WTO rules that prevent us from doing the same in the private sector, but we are seeking to use other policy tools and other means, including engagements and social dialogue, to encourage the private sector to do the same. I'll give you one example there. We've reached a number of agreements with the mining houses about localization of mining equipment, which I think is to the good of job creation and industrial capacity building in South Africa. Thank you.
Honorable Lestason.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, you said we are localizing. The DTI's DG, Mr. Lionel October, said that localization can be a game changer for South African manufacturing industry. Now, what example do SOEs set, your own entities for that matter? How does the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act affect the gross abuse of localization when the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa imports many, many units, whole locomotives, for that example, it doesn't even fit on our tracks here in South Africa, which must or could have been done locally. Why do we, maybe not your department, but why do we import boilers for millions and millions of rands from Medupi and Kusile that also could have been done in this country? Why do DTI not enforce the regulations that they've made themselves?
Well, let me say that we are doing what we can to increase the enforcement of localization. I said that this is something where we've seen teething problems. We're trying to develop a number of mechanisms. I can't announce them all today, but we are developing mechanisms to ensure greater enforcement. Indeed, let's take locomotives, and I'm not saying that they're not slippages, they're not issues in particular procurements, but let's take locomotives. Through the localization regulations that were enforced for the procurement of locomotives for Transnet, the 4 companies that were given the tenders include General Electric. I met with the General Electric executives in New York. They told me that General Electric does not manufacture locomotives outside of the United States, and the first time they did so was when they came to do so for the South African procurement. The local executives of General Electric will tell you that they've had a fantastic experience in South Africa, and indeed that localization in South Africa has become the model for their localization also in India. So localization is happening. Yes, there are slippages. Yes, there are problems. We're trying to jack those up. We're trying to jack up the enforcement as we also go along and localize more products, because we know that through localization, it's a very important policy tool for industrial development.
Honorable Kachalia, is it another mistake?
Minister Davis, we now know from the Gupta leaked emails that China South Rail was awarded a large chunk of the rolling stock tender after they paid nearly 6 billion in kickbacks to the Guptas. I have constantly requested, we have constantly requested, that local content certificates for all manufacturers of rolling stock, particularly that of China South Railways, but we still to date do not have these. I do not believe that these exist. How many more trains could have been built with that 6 billion Gupta kickback? And how many more jobs could have been created? Additionally, I was pleased to hear you talk about local content. With regard to this, I'd be intrigued to know if you classify the 6 billion kickback to the Guptas as local content.
Honorable Minister.
Well, I think if there are allegations of things that have happened that shouldn't have happened, those allegations should be referred to the law enforcement officers. Those allegations are the things that have to be the subject of various inquiries. What I can say is that where we are standing, where we are sitting, what we are seeking to introduce is effective localization. I'm actually quite interested to see that the DA has now come out as a champion of localization. That's a new piece of new news to me, because I think it as liberals you tend not to support these kind of measures. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, the next question is asked to the Minister of Public Works by Honorable Kola.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, sir. From the outset, let me just clarify one aspect of this particular question. Firstly, we are not on record as ourselves, the Department of Public Works, having said to the Portfolio Committee or any other platform that there is no collusion between parties insofar as the issue of the expanded public works program is concerned. Understandably so, because the Department of Public Works has an overall national coordination function and responsibility. However, what is true about this question is that from time to time, as a department, we do receive complaints of party political manipulation or personal patronage playing a role in the selection of EPWP participants in the recruitment process. And in such cases, such matters are then reported and are followed up by the EPWP branch. And in many of these instances, such cases turn out to be either based on rumor or generalized accusations. And with specific reference to the issue of eThekwini metropolitan municipality, they responded stating that there was no collusion in the handing out of work opportunities under the expanded public works program. And on our side, the EPWP workers, we have encouraged them at all material times to enhance their skills and apply for permanent work opportunities for which they would compete with other applicants in the markets. We have also made it quite clear that there has been no promise of permanent jobs. And in this regard, we do encourage Deputy Speaker, honorable members, and any member of the public that should they come across such allegations, we would appreciate receiving them so that we could essentially follow them up and attend to them accordingly. The Department of Public Works is only one among literally hundreds of public sector entities involved in the EPWP program. All municipalities, all provinces with dozens of provincial departments and many national departments are the actual implementers of EPWP programs. With an overall EPWP program of this size involving some 300,000 EPWP workers out in the field every single working day, with its multi-sectoral and multi-sphere complexity there are, of course, risks and challenges. It is illegal, honorable members, to pervert the selection process, and we must stamp it out. To assist public bodies with the process of selecting workers through a fair and transparent process, our branch, EPWP, has now issued a detailed EPWP recruitment guidelines insisting on transparency and prioritizing community participation. 4 universal principles have been introduced in the EPWP Phase 3 and adopted for adherence by all public bodies implementing the program. The first principle is that workers are to be recruited through a fair and transparent process. Second one calls for an adherence to the minimum wage. The third one emphasizes on that work done at a community level has got to enhance public good and/or community services. Lastly, compliance with minimum labor intensity appropriate to the sector.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Kola.
Kola Barnard, thank you. Through you, Deputy Speaker, fire pool reports are coming in from every province where Democratic Alliance colleagues are laying criminal charges against ANC ward councillors who demand ANC membership cards before they will hand over an EPWP work opportunity. In eThekwini, the mayor is involved in perverting the system. She said you will keep these jobs until they become permanent jobs. That is not what, you probably don't know much about it yet, but that's not what the EPWP program is about. It is time, Minister, that you should consider a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the deeply entrenched, undeniable corruption of this multi-million rand system?
Honorable Minister.
Deputy Speaker, I've already responded to the question insofar as Ethekwini municipality is concerned, precisely because when we received this particular issue arising out of this question, we had to take the issue up with them as a municipality. And they've responded to say that there hasn't been such a case or cases of collusion, and for them promising permanency insofar as the EPWP program kind of jobs are concerned. And of course, it's a known fact, policy-wise, that EPWP as a program does not offer permanent jobs. It is an intervention insofar as the issue of poverty alleviation. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Stolle.
Mhlonishwa sekela somlomo. Mhlonishwa Minister, bengicabanga ukuthi uMinister ngoba ngisho eCommittee sike sayikhuluma lento ye EPWP yoqasha kwamalunga kaANC kuphela. Bengithi mina uzothi uMinister ikhona indlela abayenza ngoba asikhulumi ngaseThekwini kuphela. Njengoba ngikhuluma nawe nje eSithwane eWard 105 naseWard 133 kunabantu abasale last year ngenxa zokuthi babe ngawaphetha amakhadi kaANC ukuthi baqashwe. Manje ke engicela
Honorable members, order. Please, you can't scream at a member like that.
ukwazi mina ukuthi uMinister ngoba eminyangweni nje besangena kuwo zikhona indlela yena azoyisebenzisa ukuvimba lesimo esibhekene naso ngoba lento esikhuluma ngayo EPWP issue isimo sokuthi kuncedwa abantu abahluphekile kodwa yona ngohlelo khona njengamanje akwenzeki njengoba kufanele kwenzeke.
Honorable Minister.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu sekela lokhuzana somlomo. Baba Jobe asibeke kanje. Zivamisile ukuba khona insolo zokuqhamuka kwabantu bethi baqashwa ngokuthi bakhipha amakhadi athizeni nani nani. Kodwa nje bese ngeke ngabalula phambilini. Cha kuyabaleka futhi nabenkatha kwesinye isikhathi bayabaleka nabo ngokunjalo. Kodwa lolu uhlelo lukahulumeni lokunceda abantu abahluphekayo kuleyo ndawo siyavumelana mina nawo. Manje ke ngaleso sizathu angeke kuhlupheka abantu abathile kuphela beqembu elithizeni. Abantu bakithi bonke ikakhulukazi baleli ibale siyilo thina bahluphekile. Ngakho lolu uhlelo lwami sithi ke thina sikusho njengomnyango uma kunezinsolo eziqhamukayo qhubekani njengamalunga nina umphakathi ukusibikela lezo nsolo kwenzela ukuthi silandele indaba yemkhondo efana nale njengoba sikwenzile ke nalapho eThekwini. Ngiyocela ukuthi nakulezi indawo oyibalulayo usibhalele usazise ukuthi kukhona nalokho kwezinye indawo okwenzakalayo ukuze sikwazi ukuthi sikulandele futhi nako. Siyabonga.
Honorable Klope.
Ngiyabonga Deputy Speaker. Minister, akona ama-allegations lawa shiwoyo. Ward 18 insika yethu Eastern Cape kunjalo. Ward 52 eThekwini, Phoenix, amalunga awu4 are the ANC branch members who are members of the EPWP. Now, lamalunga yahamba emsebenzini abuye ecartel aharaswe branch executive members ANC ukuthi if we are not coming to attend ANC meetings now because sesiqashile sizokhipha emsebenzini. Akona ama-allegations. I also a member of Ward 52 branch there. I stay there. So those members were recruited by the ANC councillors there. So uthini ngalokho Minister ungakhuluma ngenzo bethi singabahlali baseThekwini Ward 52. We can even tell you those names, who are those people who are member of EPWP there.
Honorable Minister.
Mina sakela somlomo ngiyakholelwa ukuthi udadewethu useyixazulule futhi lenkingi. Ake ngifanekise nje uthi wena uhlale Ward 52. Mina ngihlale Ward 52. Manje ke e-Ward 52 ninale experience eninayo ukuthi kuthiwa kuqashwa abantu ngendlela ethizeni. Cha mina ngisho njalo ngoba nina nibikela mina. Asizwaneni bantu benkosi. Mina ngizwa nina nithi kunjalo. Ngithi ke mina into engcono esizayo kulezi zinto makusuke kunje. Cha saziseni phela nisibhalele nathi ukuthi e-Ward 52 nampa abantu benza ukuthi nokuthi nisinikeze ke nalemniningwane nithi ninayo. Bese ke kuthi ke ngalanga lithile makuthi anisizakalanga. Nibuyike nifike lapha nisukume ke nithi ayisabi kudaba lokuthi e-Ward 52 noma Ward 18 noma Ward 20 sabi kudaba lokuthi kwenziwa ngalendlela. Kodwa umnyango wakho ngqongqoshe awusizanga. Nakho nanakho nanakho. Kube ukuthi sesiyakhuluma ke masekwe senza kanjalo ngiyabonga.
Honorable Matlopa.
Thanks, Honorable Deputy Speaker. eThekwini municipality has established EPWP as an approved socio-economic development and poverty alleviation program with sustainable exit strategies that maximize SMME development, employment creation and skills development led by EPWP Trust Team Group Champions. eThekwini Metro has consistently been the best performed in many South Africa's margin metros and has become the recipient of many CAMOS awards for its EPWP work in a number of sectors. It has also become the best metro performed in terms of the full-time equivalent job in EPWP, whereas the city of Cape Town is the worst metro performed in this respect. Honorable Minister, don't you think that this practical and real empowerment that is taking place in eThekwini Metro can be extended to the other municipalities to the success of EPWP outcome? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Sir. I certainly do think, honourable members, that they are best practice kind of examples that we can tap into. And as a matter of principle, I think we do need to combine all manner of forces to be able to activate society towards the question of the EPWP programs, and particularly because we have a 6 million job target for 2019-2020. And therefore you require that you need all necessary kind of societal structures to be mobilized towards this particular direction. And therefore I agree with the Honorable Majlopa for an example that if eThekwini has a particular program which is a working program as a municipality, and they think that is a best practice kind of example that can also be looked into and be tapped into in the South African context, and therefore also organized and mobilized other municipalities to also follow suit, will certainly support that. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The next question is by Honorable van Schalkwyk to the Minister of Trade and Industry.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The work of the Poultry Task Team is ongoing. The Poultry Task Team is led by the Department of Trade and Industry, includes the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, the Industrial Development Corporation and representatives of the poultry industry. The collaborative effort between government and stakeholders is, however, not limited to the work of this task team, and government has actively engaged as many stakeholders as possible, including importers of poultry products. Market conditions in the poultry sector have improved somewhat, and no further production facility closures or layoffs that government is aware of have taken place. The outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, in certain European countries has meant that imports from these countries have been reduced because they're prohibited by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. Answer to the second part is that government will deploy a full suite of policy interventions in collaboration with the private sector to protect the domestic poultry industry. to ensure that the interests of consumers, especially low-income earners for whom chicken is an important part of protein, are protected, to prevent job losses and factory closures at the same time as supporting the private sector to become more competitive where there's room to do so. The work to enable risk-free application of local public procurement of poultry products is near to finalization. It should be noted, however, that poultry products, while they are not designated for local content or production at present, the DTI has invoked Regulation 8.4 of the 2017 Preferential Procurement Regulation to support local procurement of poultry products. This regulation facilitates local procurement in non-designated sectors or as yet to be designated sectors or products or commodities. And finally, the Department of Trade and Industry is working closely with the private sector to support an export effort in existing and new markets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Is there a follow-up question from the Honourable van Schalkwyk?
Yes, Honourable Chairperson. Thank you, Minister, for the comprehensive response to the question. I furthermore want to establish, Honourable Minister, what is the current status of imports, and also are we addressing the cost of inputs such as grain and labour that has been a consistent challenge and problem that we've experienced and I've identified. Thank you, Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Well, the current status of imports, I think, is, and why this is a particular challenge, is that there's a very abnormal situation in poultry trade. In broad terms, developed countries consume more of the white meat and they have a byproduct which is not saleable in their markets of what's called brown meat, as bone-in portions, it's known in the trade. And there are two options. Either they can sell it into the developing world or they can turn it into pet food, and the difference in the value is quite high. And so there's a lot of pressure to open up markets in the developing world. And we are subject to a lot of that. At the same time, the very same markets are very often using sanitary and phytosanitary regulations to stop the export of white meat from our country. And so actually the poultry industry often says, and I think they've got a case, that if it was whole bird to whole bird, our production costs are quite competitive, but they cannot compete against the dumping into our market of the spare parts. That is the challenge that we are constantly facing. The issue of grain and feed and those costs are part of the raising of the competitiveness. It's part of the work of the task team to try to make the industry more competitive. But I think that we have a situation in abnormal trade. And also, as I said already, we are trying to open up markets. We are trying, for example, to engage the United States and the European Union on the removal of the sanitary and phytosanitary regulations which they impose, while at the same time they demand that we take their brown meat, their spare parts. That's the kind of market situation that we're engaged in. It's a very difficult arena, but I think the task team's work is delivering us some useful results. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Kachalia.
Minister Davis, we know that the poultry producers suffered a major setback when they could no longer brine chicken up to 60% and can now only do it to 15%. This no doubt hit their bottom line significantly. Do you think that consumers should be forced to pay for the shortfall in corporate profits, particularly when poultry is a desired primary source of protein, particularly for the poor?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, the issue of brining has been an issue. It's an ongoing issue between government and the poultry industry. We, of course, are seeking to reduce, and that's why the regulations were in place. But I think that the question and the issue is as I described it earlier on, that it's not brining only, it's not the price of grain only that is the source of the strain that's been taken by the local poultry industry. The fact of the matter is that we have imports of very low-priced spare part products If you look at countries that have been forced to open up to these products, countries in West Africa, we've seen the decimation of the poultry industries in Ghana, in Cameroon and countries like that in the early 1990s. We're determined not to follow them and to resist the pressures for us simply to open up to what are not competitive products, but which are dumped products because they are simply the spare parts sold at a price which is below the price that could be sold in the countries of origin markets. They are unsaleable to consumers of, well, at least human consumers in those markets. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Fultane.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Minister, I put it to you that AGOA has come to bite us. It was entered into without much foresight as to its potential impact on job losses in South Africa. I would also add that because of the situation in which we are, it looks like there was very little use of technology in the industry locally. Also, would you consider, therefore, that as this task team is still busy at its work, with its work, as you put it earlier, would they consider making sure that all jobs that were lost are resuscitated? Otherwise, you're going to have families that have got nothing to feed themselves with. Secondly, would it consider stretching the value chain horizontally as well as vertically to make sure that all people who are interested in the poultry industry do get a place in which to put their shoulder on so that
Remember, your time has expired. The Honourable Minister.
Well, under AGOA, we faced overwhelming pressures. Either we made a concession on poultry imports and imports in particular of bone-in portions, or we lost the trade preferences, one-way trade preferences under AGOA. We had to make a choice. We negotiated. I might say that some parties in this House said we should just do whatever the Americans said we must do. We didn't. We negotiated, and we negotiated a quota. But that quota actually was underfulfilled last year. And so I think the truth is it's not been the imports from the United States that have been the problem. It's been the imports from the European Union. As I mentioned already, there's been the outbreak of HPAI in the European Union, and that's led to some reduction right now. Of course, we see, and the work is being led by our colleagues in DAF, but it's part of the Agricultural Production Action Plan, that the poultry sector has potential for job creation and for empowerment. The opportunities for entry by small companies is quite high. It's a sector where there are opportunities. We have to make sure that we insulate ourselves from unfair trade while at the same time trying to open up our products to real opportunities that may exist in other markets, and at the same time address all the competitiveness issues. So that's what the task team is trying to do. It's trying to enlarge the space for local poultry production in South Africa, because that is where we can get more jobs. And we are not going to allow our industry to be decimated as other industries were decimated. However much pressure is put on us, it's certainly not going to happen as long as I'm sitting here. Thank you very much.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Kalisa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, the service provider that provides food for chickens here in Parliament source their chickens from Canada. It is a fact. And this is the case, with many other departments and state-owned entities. When the Commander-in-Chief and incoming President Julius Malema wrote to you in February, one of the things he strongly recommends is that we engage all government and state-owned companies to only appoint service providers who source their chickens locally. Why is this not being done? Yeah?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I said already that we are working on a designation for poultry products, not in place yet. In the meantime, we are using Regulation 8.4. At the moment, it is to try to encourage the local sourcing of products like that. If there's a case like the one you speak to, I think that there's the chair up there. Let him take it up, because I do think that not just on designated products, but where we can exercise a policy choice and in favor of the purchase from locally produced sources. In the interests of proudly South Africa, we should do so, and I would encourage Parliament to procure local chickens rather than imported chickens. And if they're not doing that at this stage, at this point in time, let's engage the parliamentary authorities, and you have my full support in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next question, question 85, has been asked by the Honourable Mantashe to the Minister of Trade and Industry. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Department of Trade and Industry is engaging the Department of Energy, NERSA, and Eskom on a framework for a discounted energy tariff for industrial users. Industrial consumers can contact Eskom and Invest South Africa in this regard. In terms of the interim framework agreement under the electricity pricing policy, Eskom does offer short-term incentive pricing to targeted consumers to support economic growth. The Department of Trade and Industry has made the point that beneficiaries should not only include energy and carbon-intensive users, but also labor-intensive and value-added manufacturing enterprises, where sharply escalating and bunched-up electricity prices have contributed to high operating costs for those companies. In respect to Part B, in order to address the issues of electricity pricing, we are working with the above-mentioned departments and agencies, as well as with the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency and other intergovernmental departments, to address concerns of manufacturers around the issue of electricity pricing, to provide a stable, reliable source of electricity for them over the long term. Thank you.
Is there a follow-up question from the Honourable Mantashe?
Yes, Chairperson. And especially now that we have removed the DA from the Mogale City, I can ask that question happily. Administrative pricing has long been a pain of severe criticism by the governing party. Stakeholders across industrial sectors, public institutions who have who have to absorb these costs, and the public who also are forced to absorb these costs either directly or indirectly. What has happened to the policy review process that was envisaged to deal with administrative pricing? As surely this will help the manufacturing sector to be more productive.
The Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, I think that the answer to the question is that this is work in progress. It's quite right, as the Honourable Member says, that we have said that high administered prices are actually quite a source of problem for the manufacturing sector. But I think that what you can see, what we engage in the authorities in the electricity area on, is to try to extend not just into those that are high energy users, but also into other priority sectors, so that the electricity price and price increases do not become a burden to them. Whenever there is a set of NERSA hearings, the Department of Trade and Industry is always there to make sure that this issue is firmly taken into account, so that while we recognize that we cannot offer ultra-cheap electricity like we did in the past, at the same time we ensure that electricity pricing is a source of continued competitiveness in the South African economy. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable McPherson.
Sorry, thank you, House Chair. Just to let the Honourable Mantashe know that it's just for the weekend. Minister, independent power producers have proven to bring down the cost of electricity and are more reliable than Eskom on their worst day. If we want to reduce electricity costs to manufacturers, why then are you sitting on your hands while Eskom refuses to sign new independent power agreements, completely ignoring the Cabinet resolution of August 2016? Why are you not pushing the Cabinet to make sure that Eskom implements its IPP agreements? And why are you putting at risk 59 billion rand worth of investment into the sector?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, first of all, just to indicate that the issue is not the IPPs per se, it's what's called the power purchase agreements that follow after the awarding of the IPPs in renewable energy. Indeed, we have raised this matter. It is a matter that is receiving attention. We are not directly responsible for the decisions that are made by ESCOM, but that matter, let me just assure the honourable member, has been raised on our side repeatedly. We are aware of the importance of following up the IPP awards with the power purchase agreements. Thank you very much.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Tlangwini.
Thanks, Chair. The manufacturing sector is not expanding, and Bantustat area, industrial areas, complexes have closed down. What is the basis of your so-called oversupply of electricity? For who and for what?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, just on the, you said that, I presume you mean by Bantustan industries, you mean some of the industries that are finding themselves into some of the industrial parks. I should indicate that we are in a very ambitious program proceeding through stages to revitalize a number of these industrial parks. And we find that there are quite a significant number of industrialists, including black industrialists, that are active within them. The last one we went to was in Babalegi in Gauteng stroke Northwest. And then to say, why is there, well, there's a reduction in demand by industrial customers in South Africa as a result of the economic conditions, as well as by domestic consumers, and that this means that there's now opportunities for us to secure contracts on preferential terms for industrial clients as a way of boosting industrial activity. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Esterhuizen.
Chair, thank you. Minister, not that you have much to do with generation electricity in this country. The FFC, the Financial and Fiscal Commission, reported that for the last 7 years, municipalities have spent less than 60% of the money allocated from National Treasury for electricity infrastructure and maintenance. This is with a benchmark of 10 billion rand a year. And also then how can you, as Minister of Trade and Industry, ensure affordable electricity, as this is again clearly mismanagement and corruption from the ruling party at the expense of the ordinary citizen and consumer?
The Honourable Minister.
I think that, you know, the challenges in the energy sector are not all at the door of trade and industry. We try to deal with the implications of some of these issues on industrial production in our country. I think some of these questions you should be directing at people that are responsible for the electricity policy and the electricity utility. Thank you.
The next question, question 102, has been asked by the Honourable Shin to the Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. There is an emerging trend in many parts of the world to introduce wholesale open access network. The Mexican approach was initiated through the implementation of constitutional reforms and changing the legal framework of the telecom sector, with the objective of giving Mexicans access to better and cheaper telecommunication services and to raise the competition in the economy. Although in our engagement with the South African ICT investors and sector, we have not gone into details of the Mexican open access network, I wish to share some of the experience I've met with my engagement with the Mexican government. First, the introduction of the 2012 telecommunications reforms it gave a positive impact in the Mexican economy in the first 3 years of implementation. First, the GDP of the ICT sector grew from 2% to 11% in those 3 years. The telecommunication prices had decreased of about 25%. There's been also an increase in competition in this market. For example, Mr. Chairperson, the biggest operator, American Mobile, User prices were slashed down by 25% in the mobile sector and 40 to 50% in the fixed sector. The background to the success of the Mexican reforms are as follows. The early reforms in the early 90s, which introduced privatization and competition, didn't have any positive impact. There were 6 fixed operators, 4 mobile operators, but the net result was that the market was dominated by a private former SOE Telemex, having 70% of the share of both the fixed and the mobile market. In 2011, the government of Mexico commissioned OECD study, which revealed the following. 1, that there were high levels of concentration and market dominance. 2, that prices were high and low uptake of the ICT services. 3, there was poor infrastructure development, particularly in rural areas. And 4, there was inefficient regulatory regime that could not address the market problems. In 2012, the Mexican government accepted this and started implementing these reforms. First, there was a constitutional reform and agreement by all parties that citizens of Mexico will have a right to universal access to ICT. 2, they developed this shared network with the allocation of all sub-1 gig spectrum to this new network. There was establishment of a new regulator with full access to all information of the operators, and there was establishment of special courts with judges who were specialists in ICT matters and were able to fast-track the legislation. So the net result, Chairperson, there was stricter regulation, and all dominant players with more than 50% market share, they had to give free termination rate and national roaming rates to the smaller ones. And they started rolling out the broadband to all communities of Mexico. So the net result is that there was a lowering of cost through these radical reforms which were introduced in 2012. Thank you very much.
Is there a follow-up question from the Honourable Shin?
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, I asked a specific question which you've gone to great length to avoid. While there were many benefits, I asked specifically about the wireless open access network. I didn't ask about the 5 years of history before it was established. While there are many benefits from the multi-stakeholder wholesale wireless network idea, such an introduction has had no impact so far on reducing the cost to communicate. You told the Portfolio Committee in May, Minister, that your benchmarking visit to the Mexican government on December the 7th and the 8th was to understand how it dealt with its formation of the new wireless open access network. You said the Mexican government told you the network was working and that it had reduced the cost to communicate. This answer puzzles me. You see, Minister, the 20-year concession to build the new network was only awarded to the winning bidders on November the 18th, 3 weeks before your visit. The Mexican government only signed the public-private partnership for the network on January 25th this year, 6 weeks after your visit. Tenders for the network components have only recently been published. The network is only due to become operational by March 31st, 2018. That's 10 months still away. The impact of the yet-to-be-built network on reducing communication costs cannot yet be calculated. So, Minister, either you knew so very little about what was happening with the Mexican network that you didn't challenge the information that was given to you, or you have gone to great lengths to fabricate the network's unproven benefits to justify your hotly contested wholesale policy network. Why did you fabricate this answer, Minister?
The Honourable Minister.
As a norm, the ANC and this government never fabricates anything. As I've said to Mrs. Shin before, the problem, when we go, we communicate with governments. We communicate with the government of Mexico. They brought their regulator. They brought the people are using this new network and operationalizing. They gave us documents. They gave us documents, they just didn't only talk. But when I meet another minister, I've got no reason not to trust that minister. For your information, the cost has come down since 2012 when they started with the regulation. The first thing they did was regulating legislative reforms. In 2013, yes, in 2013 they put up the tender for the open access network. But what was good with the Mexican, because their open access network was a PPP, to protect their spectrum, the spectrum was allocated to the state side of that PPP, so that if they meet problems, people don't run away with their spectrum. So I've got no reason to doubt governments and their institution when we meet them and they give us documents. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Gigaba.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, hashtag data must fall came and it went. A lot was said and your department made presentation to the portfolio committee. All giant network companies were called to make presentations, and they did. Before we move on to this complex and possible long-term solutions to drive down costs to communicate, as it was clear during presentation after hashtag data must fall campaign, why haven't costs been reduced? As it is clear that South Africans are paying too much money, what did you do since hashtag data must fall campaign?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Member, as I've said before, last year I issued a policy directive to the regulator, which is the CASA, to specifically focus on the broadband market to see whether there is effective competition. If not, so that they can introduce measures and regulation to ensure that there's regulation. Unfortunately, the regulator has not completed their study, but they are doing it. During our budget vote, because I was not satisfied by the pace, I also asked Minister Patel, the Minister of Economic Development, and the competition authorities to also do another parallel study to check at the level of competition, because the challenge with the South African market is heavily concentrated, is dominated by two players who are dominating the market share. There has not been effective competition at services, which will bring the prices down. So some of the measures were put, such as open access network, will allow many operators, even small operators, new operators, black operators, to come into this market and give services to our people. That's what will drive the prices down. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Toteti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, in light of the fact-finding mission in Mexico, is there a need to revisit Mexico? If yes, will Minister consider emulating the Mexican approach, that is the red competitor model? And going forward, how will it enhance the pace to reduce the cost to communicate in South Africa and make life better for communities in South Africa, for poor communities? And lastly, in your opinion, Minister, do you think the EU will ever support any program towards transformation in the ICT sector to improve the quality of life of the previously disadvantaged?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Sotesi. As I've said, what I recommend to Ms. Sotesi, because she's a chair of the committee now, that she must encourage members of parliament to take a study there. And I'll specifically encourage the so-called the right-wing alliance, which is led by the DA, EFF, and the Freedom Front, that they are made specifically to be part of the delegation.
Order, Chair.
Honourable Minister, will you just take your seat? What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
EFF is guided by Marxist-Leninism theory.
Honourable Member,
it can't be a left-wing party.
That is not a point
no, Chair,
of order.
You must withdraw.
No.
Honourable Member, I can't allow him to call us
that is not a point
right-winger.
of order.
No,
please take your
Minister
seat.
Kode, we are out of order, Chief.
Please take your seat, Honourable Minister.
Okay. I was saying I'll
On a
encourage.
point of order, Chairperson.
Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
Honourable Chair, this guy that didn't even know
No,
that
Honourable
his
Member,
wife
take
was
your
selling
seat.
drugs.
Take your
must
seat,
never
Honourable
say
Member.
That EFF is a right-wing
Honourable
party.
Member,
must
please
never
take your
say
seat.
it, because he didn't even know that his wife sells drugs.
Honourable Member, take your seat. You are completely now off the mark. Honourable Minister, will you respond to the follow-up
Yes.
questions, please?
Yes, I will encourage them to do that because they are in alliance. Because in Mexico,
But Chair, we are not protecting
No,
us, Chair.
Honourable Member.
But we are not protecting
Honourable
us.
Member.
The ANC voted with the
Honourable Member, take your seat. Take your seat.
Go, Chairperson, because in Mexico, much as they've got different parties, but their parties, when it comes to the poor Mexican and rural Mexicans, they've got national interests that they all should be connected to these modern technologies. The challenge we have in South Africa is that some of the parties, particularly like DA, they focus on rich suburbs. If you connect rich suburbs, they are satisfied. They are not worried about what is happening at Mahlabatini and in my village in the rural area. In that respect, we can learn valuable lessons, because for them to even change the constitution and agree, let's put the right to ICT as a right to all citizens of Mexico. That's what has made radical changes in that country. Thank you.
The last follow-up question, order. The last follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Mackenzie. Honourable members of the DAE, those who are blocking my view to the Honourable Mackenzie, will you take your seats, please?
Thank you, House Chairperson. I hope you can see this good-looking face now uninterrupted.
It looks a bit better now.
Minister, you've so far declined to respond to a request put to you during the budget debate for a secret agreement between mobile network operators and other ICT stakeholders to be posted on your department's website. This agreement supposedly focuses on the allocation of spectrum for the network and its implementation. Yet there's been no public citing of this agreement, so no one is left to speculate why this is and what this agreement entails. But Minister, as the midwife of this agreement that was reached outside of the legal policy-making processes, can you tell us whether it was at all informed by your department's feedback from the Mexican visit, or from your visit the previous year to Rwanda, where its wholesale wireless network is in danger of collapsing as network operators seek to withdraw from it? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. There is no secret agreement between my department and the operators. Those meetings are held in the public. They are organized by the National ICT Forum, which is a formal consultation structure. We are consulting with them because they are the major investors in this economy, so that when we finalize our implementation plan, we take into account the issues they raise, because they are the ones who could have run these networks. So the policy of South Africa was not informed only by Mexico, but we are learning from Mexico. It was not only informed by the Rwandan experience, but we are informed by it. Just last month, I was in Rwanda on an AU meeting. It is working. That's why it's going to be important. There is no operator who's withdrawing. They are not withdrawing. It's run by South Korea. That's a leader of telecoms. Others are using it, and we met those. Some of them are operators who are operating here in South Africa, and they are using that network. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next question, question 86, has been asked by the Honourable Bekwa to the Minister of Small Business Development. The Honourable Minister.
Finally, Chair, another question. You know, we want to answer all the questions on small business development, because we do believe that small business, for real, is going to be the future in the economy of South Africa. Honourable Chairperson, the role of the Department of Small Business Development to guide and coordinate and work of various intergovernmental relations that focuses on the empowerment of small business development is aligned to the mandate of DSBD. We have signed transversal agreements with other departments, for instance, Department of Public Enterprise, Tourism, Social Development, Defense, Rural Development and Land Reform, Traffic Infringement Agency, Telecommunication, who has just presented now, and as a department also, Minister, you know that we are engaging with yourselves because for small and medium enterprises, data must fall. It's got to be cheap. Department of Labor, Johannesburg City Parks Zoo, Department of Public Works. The department was unable to migrate the incubation support program that was part of economic competitiveness support program package under the Department of Trade and Industry. The department then established the Enterprise Incubation Program, which was implemented from 2016-2017 financial year. I thank you.
Is there a follow-up question from the Honourable Bekwa?
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, what is the department's plan to tap into 15.5 billion government expenditure on small business development? Thank you, House Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Bekwa. Yes, that is quite a sizable amount of expenditure by government, and it is important that small and medium enterprises take advantage of this. And I think it will be important for those who are howling across there to the DA to let them know that it is actually this government that is supporting small and medium enterprises more than your friends in the big business who are actually monopolizing, capitalizing, and blocking small and medium enterprises. The department has adopted an approach of coordinating all government spending aimed at developing small business and cooperatives, which enable us to monitor the 15 billion expenditure aimed at supporting small business and cooperatives. And Chairperson, to the howlers again, it would also be very interesting to get them to speak to their friends who actually made an announcement some time back that they were going to be investing 1.5 billion into supporting small and medium enterprises. We are still yet to see that happening. Rather than you making noises, go and talk to those big businesses, your friends who are monopolizing the economy of South Africa, and ask them, where is that fund? When are small and medium enterprises going to see that? And lastly, Chairperson, I also would like to say, you know those howlers across there? One of the mistakes that they are making, they are blocking the opportunity for all others to see us as the government of the African National Congress and small business development being a ministry for everybody, not just the ministry of black people. And those ones who are making noise about the Guptas, they also have to come here and tell us what else are they doing about the billions which are sitting there with your friends.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Making noise about the Guptas, go rest.
The Honourable Chance.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, we have an anomalous situation where the budget for the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, which has been under your nominal political control for over a year, is actually controlled by the Department of Economic Development through the IDC. Now, CEFA's last annual report stated that it fails to collect 67% of the direct loans that it makes to small business, which under normal circumstances would result in this unit being closed down immediately. So what discussions are you having, Minister, or have you had with Minister Patel about CEFA's dire financial performance? And when will you determine, when will your department acquire full control of CEFA's budget to get it back on track and possibly establish it as an independent entity under your direct political control? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chance, for that question. First and foremost, I would like to say that we don't work in isolation. And therefore, as a Department of Small Business Development and Cooperatives, we continuously engage with the Department of Economic Development and all other departments. Secondly, I would also like to say, remember and recall that when we started in this department 3 years ago, there was already an existing MOU between the Department of Economic Development as well as SIFA. And we are in collaboration and discussion with the Department of Economic Development to say that ultimately, when this department also has the full capacity and has the capacity in particular to manage some of these things, because my belief was that it wouldn't make sense for us to behave like a bull in a china shop and just come in and say, we're going to take over everything. We do need to develop our capacity so that the accountability part is also taken care of. The other question that we are raising around SIFA and SIFA not being able to collect from the loans. Let us start from this point of view. My view is that when agencies like SIFA behave like banks, it becomes very difficult in supporting your small and medium enterprises. We must discuss things in context of the fact that we are a developmental state, number one. Number two, the majority of black people who get the loans and subsidies and assistance, where the state of their businesses are, I don't think we should have approached it from that point, that we give you the money and we want the money back. Because my experience in the department and is working with SIFA is that many of our people do want to pay back the money. But the conditions and the closure of the access to the value chains and making sure that their businesses work is very difficult. We are not saying money must not be paid back. We are, however, saying let us remember that we're giving loans to people that never had an opportunity in the past, and therefore how we develop the system of assisting them to get the loans and bring the loan back, we must make it easy for them and not behave like banks. I thank you.
Honorable Matiase.
Thanks, House Chair. Minister, look, integration process of certain functions in something else. What is key here is whether does your department have a strategy in place to ensure that whatever developmental goals and deliverables set for your department is in place. And I'm raising this because the late Secretary General of the Communist Party, Krizan, says one of the things that must be done is to overcome the huge divide between rural and urban economy. And in doing so, lift up the rural and urban people from the slumber of economic neglect. Now the question is your department geared towards realizing the objective of lifting up township economy and integrating it into the mainstream economy? Are you geared towards that? Or you are simply playing?
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Matiase. Of course, look at me and tell me that I look like a person who's playing and wasting government money. The one thing I can assure you is that those ones who are making noise over there, especially that side, while we were struggling,
Order, honourable members.
While we were struggling to change the lives of South Africans, we didn't start it yesterday. We started it way back.
Order, Chair.
So,
why are you rising, honourable member?
Thank you, House Chair. I rise on a point of order. The Honourable Minister knows better than to refer
in
to
terms of which
members,
rule?
Rule 63. To refer to members of this House as honourable members, not those ones. Thank you, House
member.
Chair.
That, you know, you refer to Rule 63. Rule 63 doesn't deal with what you have said. Rule 63 is something very serious in terms of freedom of speech. And what the rule that you're quoting then actually allows the minister to say what she said. Continue, Honourable Minister.
Thank you. So, House Chair, I rise in terms of Rule 61.
No, Honourable Member. Really?
Now, Chairperson, we never even took chances in as far as the struggle and liberating South Africa is concerned. So we're not taking chances even now. We know exactly what we are doing. We know exactly why we are doing it. And the honorable member here knows, I've said it even in answering one of the questions, that the focus of our department is to ensure that there's the rural enterprises who are in the rural areas must be developed. We have said also, our focus on the township is critical and important. Here is the issue here. Chairperson, had we not had a situation where rural areas were reserves, where townships were not created for reserves, we would not be at this stage of trying to correct the imbalances of the past. We are in this space where we are today because the great-grandfathers of those ones who are across there created the situation that we find ourselves in. And therefore, the responsibility to change this does not only lie this side, it also lies with you, that side, ensuring that what your great-grandfathers did to us does not repeat itself.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next question was asked by question 91, asked by the Honourable Mackenzie to the Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. SAPO has not submitted any request for a bailout. SAPO did an assessment of their funding requirements when they submitted the 2016 corporate plan. At that point, they already had an existing 1 billion long-term loan and 270 million overdraft facility. It was envisaged that an additional 3.35 billion funding would be required. The National Treasury only allocated 650 million capital injection in that financial year, and the 2.7 billion funding shortfall was secured through additional long-term borrowing. This resulted in SAPO having consolidated long-term borrowing of 3.7 billion rand. SAPO subsequently requested a 2.7 billion funding in the 2017 MTSF process. This was intended to pay off the loans, as the reliance on debt fund is not sustainable, especially given that they come at a high cost. Unfortunately, there was no funding allocation in this financial year. In the 2017 budget speech, the Minister of Finance indicated that proposal of putting the capital structure of the post office on a sound footing will need to be agreed upon, and he had hoped that this could be dealt with in the adjustment budget later this year. SAPO is currently reassessing their funding requirement, and upon completion of these assessments, submissions for funding requests will be made. So this is what is happening. There's no current bailout which has been requested. Thank you.
Is there a follow-up question from the Honourable Mackenzie?
Thank you. No rules. Thank you, Minister, for the answer. We know that there's been no budget allocation to the South African Post Office, but given that the South African Post Office has borrowed 3.75 billion from the private sector, with debt service costs running into hundreds of millions of rands every year, which together with the fact that the South African Post Office is losing around 100 million rand a month from its normal operations, it is clear that the entity will run out of other people's money before the end of the year. If the Minister will not bail out the South African Post Office, what steps will he take to ensure that the entity has enough cash flow to fund its operations for this year and the next? Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, I've said the Minister of Finance did mention SAPO in the budget vote, and we're working on the adjustment estimate to look under these difficult conditions whether there'll be some fund allocation. What is the problem? The cost of borrowing are too high, and that's what is crippling, one of the things which is crippling the operations. If you check, for instance, our debt service cost is 360 million, just 1 year. So it is very expensive. This cash doesn't come. That's why the company needs capital injection so that it can effect the turnaround. Thank you.
Order, Honourable Member. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Schlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister, one of the envisaged programs for the Post Office would be the SASSA takeover, because we all know the disaster that took place at SASSA, failure to manage and all sorts of hukanga and corruption there. So is the Post Office, Honourable Minister, in a position to take over the grant payouts? Can you give that surety that a timeline is in place and that the necessary funding will be made available for the Post Office to take over this all-important task? And when do you envisage, at the very least, the Post Office beginning to take over certain aspects of this? Because the bottom line is we don't want CPS, not want those bunch of crooks paying the money as of the 1st of April next year. So we need a surety that Post Office is ready to ensure that they pay out the grants in a manner which induces the confidence that is required. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Minister.
Yes, thanks, Honourable Slengo, for the questions. We have publicly said that the Post Office is ready to assist SASSA to take over the pension payout. What has happened in the recent months, we have made several presentations to SASSA and the department showing the state of readiness of SAPO to take over the payment on behalf of SASSA. So, but because the function rests with SASSA, what we are hoping for that the SASSA will finalize these processes soon, because we need a transitional period. You cannot just take over those pensions in 1 month. There must be a process of handover so that we don't affect our poorer citizens. So we are working much closer with the SASSA and the Department of Social Development to make sure that there will be a smoother transition. But we are dependent on the finalization of the procurement processes from SASSA, which I hope would be done quite soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Keta Barkley.
I'll take that question, Chair. Minister, in post offices, there are workers that are called delivery agencies, which their contracts are described as private or independent contractors. So, Minister, we have cases such as people have been employed for 14 years and they are getting paid by a letter, and a letter can give them such as 20 cents. A case that I've been referring to yourself is a case of Ms. Malanga Kumbe, who has been working for 14 years, but she hardly taking 1,000 per month at home. So, Minister, when are you going to review this contract? Because this is the exploitation.
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Honourable Member. Of course, you have referred the question and we're busy dealing with that matter. The challenge we have, as you correctly mentioned, these people are not the employees of the post office. They are the contractors. I'm trying to answer you. They have signed contracts. I've seen these contracts. I'm not happy with those contracts myself. The challenge is that when they signed these contracts, the volumes for letters were high. Even if it was 20 cents per letter to deliver, but if you are delivering 5,000 letters per month, you will still get a reasonable living salary. But because the volumes of the letters have gone down, and people still have one area they are operating in, so that's what is affecting them negatively. We are engaging the SAPO to see whether this system is valuable. The lady you are referring to, a case is true. She's taking home about 1,000 rand per month because the letter volumes have come down. And not for 14 years. In the recent years, the letter volumes are coming down. So So what we are doing, the lady has taken support to CCMA just because to prove the point that she's not an employee. The CCMA refused to take the case because they say this is a supplier, it's like a private contractor. But we understand the plight of our people that they can't make ends meet with those type of arrangement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, the time allocated for questions has expired and outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. Honourable Members, I wish to make the following ruling. Will you take your seats, please? During the debate on the presidency budget vote, which took place on Wednesday, the 31st of May 2017, a number of points of order were raised in response to certain remarks made by the Honourable Pluama and the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, the Honourable Manamela. At the time of these remarks, I indicated that I would study the Hansard and revert to the House with rulings. Having had now the opportunity to look into the contested remarks and the rules of the House, I wish to make the following ruling. Since the Honourable Pluama is not in the House, I will wait for the next opportunity when he's present to deal with the ruling that pertains to him. In the second instance, the Honourable Manamela said that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition went to Zambia to, and I quote, implement regime change, close quote. The Honourable Chief Whip of the Opposition subsequently rose on a point of order to inquire whether such a remark was parliamentary in terms of Rule 85. The concept of regime change have different connotations, but is usually intended to mean the replacement of one system of government by another, especially through force or other means. It is common cause that Zambia is a democratic state. In this regard, one can conclude from the remarks made by the Honourable Deputy Minister that he was asserting that the Honourable Maimane intended to undermine a democratic system and government. This is indeed a reflection on the Honourable Member and is therefore unparliamentary. I ask the Honourable Deputy Minister to withdraw the remark.
I withdraw, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. Honourable Members, that concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.